All right, welcome to the podcast. Let's talk a little bit more about marketing. And today we're really going to be hammering into LSA because tail end of last year, there was a lot of changes that hit LSA and it kind of threw some companies for a loop. And some of you, it's like you dropped off the face of the earth. Some of you, it's like you found the face of the earth. And so there's some reasons why all that has been happening. I've got some theories, I've got some changes, and I figured we'd go through it. So hold on, let's go and talk about LSA. Before we get into the changes of LSAs, I forgot to do this part of the podcast, so I'm cutting this in here. LSAs, just for those of you who don't know, because I do have consults where people are like, what are the LSAs? That is the Google Guaranteed program where you have to get verified, both your license number as well as a background check on the platform in order to run the ads. It is also, it's one of the best lead sources for new businesses. That's why we recommend it. But it is called Google. So LSA stands for local service ads. And when they show up, they have a green check mark and it says Google guaranteed. Google calls them local service ads. That's what we're talking about today. Anyway, back to the podcast. LSA last year, especially at the tail end, started going through just a number of changes. And so I want to outline what those are first. We have the reduction from, especially on desktop, where it used to show you 3 listings, like in a card system side by side, and now it's 2 elongated, like horizontal cards instead. And what that does is it kills the visibility, right? So instead of you being able to show up 3 times and at least having a chance at bat, now 33.33% of your at bats are just gone. Like you do not show up on that first page. So that's frustrating, understandably. So the only way to show up beyond that is if somebody searches like more plumbers and then you end up in the list that way. And nobody does that. Nobody searches through LSA going like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go for the next one. No, everybody knows that the second page of Google is death and clicking to get more options is the second page. I don't care if it happens up at the top or if it happens down at the bottom. So that's a challenge. The other thing that this does is anytime you've got high demand and less inventory, what happens? Prices go up. It just, you can't get there. You're willing to pay more. So I think this is some of Google possibly going like, well, how do we monetize this more? And I think they're doing that because it can cannibalize search. So that's a whole nother like thing to keep in mind. So along with that, what other, I have notes pulled up here. We've got, so in that realm of less demand, it's even happening when you do click on search, like show more plumbers. It used to be, it would give you 50 listings. And now it's only giving you 20. So granted, nobody's going to go all the way down to 20 in the first place. So it's probably not, that extra jump probably wasn't helping you much. But the question remains like, what if Google is rotating the same 20 in and out? And if you're not inside of that rotation, does that matter? And honestly, I haven't seen that be a thing yet, so I wouldn't hang my hat on that, but it's something that we have to be thinking about. So in another realm of changes in this is Google really started to push messaging. And so what it is appearing like is if you have the ability to send a message to a lead on platform, which is just a toggle, like you are prioritized more frequently than somebody who isn't. And that would be fine. That I would be 100% okay with that because people like to communicate the way they want to. And we often tell clients like when you are putting your availability out there, you need to be on whatever pathway people want to choose. Some people want to choose a phone call, some people want to choose a message, some people want a chat widget. That's okay. All of that is a-okay. What I don't like about this is how Google has activated kind of like a round robin system. So what ends up happening is your customer will fill out a message and then they will be asked if they want to send messages to other people, which means a few things. One, that is, if you are not on that message immediately and somebody else is, like the second or the third person that they send a message to, you're out. So you really have to be on your CSRs and on your response rates in order for this to work at all. But it also means that like other people are getting the same lead. And if you're being charged for that message, well, then other people are being charged too. So it seems like another form of monetization happening on Google's end, where they're like, now we can make money off of 2 leads instead of 1, or make money twice off of the same leads, some stuff like that. So, and this is all in the interest of 2 things: Google trying to make their platform easier and simpler for their user, while monetizing that user against businesses, because businesses need that contact, and that's perfectly fine as well. But it's changing the game. And our responsibility as an agency, and your responsibility as a person who relies on these things, is to make sure that you're nimble enough to where you aren't over reliant on a platform that's going to change itself on a whim. Because I have seen people who had, 80 calls a month coming in from LSA, and they built their company on the back of it, and then poof, it's gone. And I've seen the exact same story happen on Yelp. I've seen it on Home Advisors, Angie, whatever. Like, all these platforms have fallibility, which is why I preach so much about brand building. I'm not going to go into it now, but so keep that in mind. You have to be super responsive on these platforms if you really want them to work the way. And we already preach a lot about, you need to go into the platform, you need to mark jobs booked, you need to ask for review, and you need to make sure that review is hitting that platform, not going to your Google business, so Google can tie those signals together. But now you've got messages to think about and your response rate on those messages. So that is another thing to do. So with all of this stuff, like, let's think about the long term of LSA, because I don't really know what Google's planning to do here. And I don't think anybody really knows. I don't even think Google has it all planned out yet. I think they test the waters and they lean into things like we would that work, and then they sell that, and then it kind of grows from there. So, but one of the reasons why we typically tell people to go to LSA is it's very budget conscious. When you get a call, you can dispute it if it's not a good call and get that money back in order to go to the next lead. And that's a wonderful system. But it's cheaper is the other thing. So 35, 70 bucks a lead compared to what you can pay on Google search, where you need 10 to 15 clicks to get it to convert into a call. And those prices end up being high if you're in a really competitive market, and LSAs end up being cheaper. So LSAs are very cost effective. And so I don't see us saying don't do LSA, but just have your expectations in line about what it can do, and realize that you can't throttle the volume, because it's not like you can just throw more money at it and suddenly Google's going to up your visibility. That works sometimes, but not across all markets. We're finding lots of different things of this. So long term, back to long term. I'm wondering if, like, this is obviously a response to Google working on like the lead farming sort of things like Angie's and Yelp and competing with those areas, but it's also simpler for their user than the list that they had, clicking to a landing page, then initiating a call. And Google's on a tear for the past number of years to try and keep people on their page, on their search engine, and surface the most useful, accurate things they can on that page. So I think it's in the interest of that as well. But of course, it's going to be cannibalizing search because it's above search in the listings, right? When you search plumber near me in any market, you're going to see LSA, you're going to see your search ads, then you're going to see your extensions, which are also paid, and then you're going to see your maps. And then you get into organic listings, and maps and organic listings are now being pushed below the scroll, which might as well be the second page of Google sometimes. So, not saying that organic doesn't have its place, but it's important to understand how these pages are built when it comes to your expectation of what they are. So I think that prices are going to go up, because that's what Google is in the business of. They're not going to say, oh, hey, guess what? Suddenly we're going to give you our users cheaper. No, that's not what's going to happen. And it's still going to end up being this auction system. The hard part about LSA is that lack of being able to throttle it, right? So I would love it if we had the ability to just say, all right, we're willing to spend more money than the next guy, so then we get all the calls, but we don't. Instead, they've got this rotation and ranking system in there, again, in service of the user. Now Google is being able to sense your actions in order to figure out how much traffic they want to send you. And I think that's them protecting their investment and them protecting their revenue streams and their users, because that's what they sell their advertising on. So um, it's going to be interesting over this next year, and it's just all of this is just another layer of the market shifting and changing, and that is going to be true forever. I don't see people putting the genie of digital back in its place, and it's all going into like print, radio, and TV again. That's not the way the world works, and um, it's it. People want the information where they want it. Like the only thing that would knock Google off of its game is something really disruptive, and we haven't seen that come through yet. And I don't think AI is necessarily going to do that either. So um, so yeah, this is all just the market shifting more and more. And this is marketing in this day and age is a constant rate of change and a constant shifting and pivoting. And that's okay. It's kind of fun in some ways, but it can be nerve-wracking if it's tied to the health of your business. So the only way you can play the game of stability in marketing is by building a long-term brand presence, and that is not done on lead generation platforms. That is done on basically brand awareness platforms like Facebook and Google's display network and YouTube and OTT and these other forms of marketing. Your vans, your logo, the way you communicate, your community presence, all that stuff. No one can take that away from you, and that's where I think people forget to advertise that way. I think a lot of people end up just going like, well, I got LSA, I got Google search, I've got all these like lead generation things happening, but you're not building a brand. And that's what will help stem the tide against changes like we're seeing on LSA. So keep that in mind. If you want to be really, really strong, you have to build an association in your prospect's mind that you are the company to call. And they don't even go to Google because there's no question about it. And if they do go to Google, they're looking for you. I talk a lot about that. But so if you have any, like if this is stuff you want to dive into, feel free to go to tylerwilliams.net. I have a little consult button. You can schedule a consult with me, or, at the very least, someone on my crew. And we can sit down, we can talk about it and go through your marketing. But remember, the biggest chunk of all of this is to get your marketing out of the Stone Age. So if you aren't marketing, or if you are marketing in old school ways or platforms, you got to change it. And that time was yesterday. So anyway, LSA future, it's going to be murky and weird, like everything in marketing. So, but one takeaway, if you do LSAs, you have to be hyper responsive. Train your CSRs, train your internal team, make sure that you've got automations in place if you can activate them. Not everybody can. So, all right, I'm heading out. You guys have a good one. Thanks.